This is News Roundup, a review of major developments in the week ending. I am Tunde Alabi. Thank you for being part of the program. British Prime Minister Theresa May has used her conservative address to ask her party and the nation to unite in one common purpose in order to defeat all adversities. She challenged the society to tolerate different opinions from politicians without resulting to attacks. She used the speech to attack Labour Party under Jeremy Corbyn.
A country which stood together in solidarity with people of every class sharing the danger should become a fairer place. A generation later, another victory built on shared sacrifice renewed that determination. Twice in a century, Britain came together to beat the odds and build a better future. A stronger democracy in the Mother of Parliaments, where every person, no matter their gender, no matter their class, has an equal voice. A fairer economy in the home of the free market, where enterprise creates wealth to fund great public services. A more secure future in the post-war world, where former enemies become friends, and the transatlantic alliance makes our world a safer place. We must recapture that spirit of common purpose, because the lesson of that remarkable generation is clear. If we come together, there is no limit to what we can achieve. Our future is in our hands. And that's why we're all in this hall today. It's the reason we chose to get involved in politics in the first place. We believe that by standing up to be counted, by working together, we can change our communities and our country for the better. It's not always glamorous. I've seen the trailers for Bodyguard. And let me tell you, it wasn't like that in my day. But real politics involves a lot of hard graft, knocking on doors in all weathers, delivering bundles of leaflets. We do it because we believe in its potential to transform lives. We understood when we got involved that sometimes it's adversarial. But in the last few years, something's changed for the worse. I feel it, and I'm sure you do too. Rigorous debate between political opponents is becoming more like a confrontation between enemies. People who put themselves forward to serve are becoming targets. Not just them, their families as well. We all saw the sickening pictures of a far-left extremist shouting abuse at Jacob Rees-Mogg's children. And it's not only Conservatives who are facing abuse. The first black woman ever to be elected to the House of Commons receives more racist and misogynist messages today than when she first stood over 30 years ago. You don't have to agree with a word Diane Abbott says to believe passionately in her right to say it, free from threats and abuse. Some people have lost sight of the fact that political differences are not everything. I've served in local and national government, in office and in opposition. I know that no party has a monopoly on good ideas. Getting things done requires working together within parties and beyond them. When our politics becomes polarised and compromise becomes a dirty word, that becomes harder. And good people are put off public service. It doesn't have to be this way. Our party has more elected representatives than any other. We have in our hands the power to set a standard of decency that will be an example for others to follow. The late John McCain, who spoke at this conference 12 years ago, put it like this: We argue and compete, and sometimes even vilify each other in our raucous public debates. But we have always had so much more in common with each other than in disagreement. That was Jo Cox's message too. It's a truth that the British people instinctively understand, because they are not ideologues. They know we all have a common stake in this country, and that the only path to a better future is one that we walk down together. So let's rise above the abuse. Let's make a positive case for our values that will cut through the bitterness and bile that is poisoning our politics. And let's say it loud and clear. Conservatives will always stand up for a politics that unites us rather than divides us. That used to be Labour's position too. But when I look at its leadership today, I worry it's no longer the case. We all remember what the Labour Party used to be. We passionately disagreed with many of their policies. Every Labour government left unemployment higher than they found it. Every Labour government ran out of other people's money to spend. Every Labour government left the economy in a mess. But at least they had some basic qualities that everyone could respect. They were proud of our institutions. They were proud of our armed forces. They were proud of Britain. Today, when I look across at the opposition benches, I can still see that Labour Party, the heirs of Hugh Gaitskell and Barbara Castle, Dennis Healey and John Smith, but not on the front bench. Instead, their faces stare blankly out from the rows behind, while another party occupies prime position, the Jeremy Corbyn party. The Jeremy Corbyn party rejects the common values that once bridged our political divide. Just compare Jeremy Corbyn's behaviour to that of his predecessors. Would Neil Kinnock, who stood up to the hard left, have stood by while his own MPs faced deselection and needed police protection at their party conference? Would Jim Callaghan, who served in the Royal Navy, have asked the Russian government to confirm the findings of our own intelligence agencies? Would Clement Attlee, Churchill's trusted deputy during the Second World War, have told British Jews they didn't know the meaning of anti-Semitism? What has befallen Labour is a national tragedy. What has it come to when Jewish families today seriously discuss where they should go if Jeremy Corbyn becomes Prime Minister? When a leading Labour MP says his party is institutionally racist? When the leader of the Labour Party is happy to appear on Iranian state TV but attacks our free media here in Britain? That is what Jeremy Corbyn has done to the Labour Party. It is our duty in this Conservative Party to make sure he can never do it to our country.
And the Labour leader Jeremy Corbyn has accused the Conservative-led government of causing social failure due to its privatization and outsourcing programs. While speaking at the Labour conference, the Labour leader said that the government programs have caused destructive austerity.
Every month this government remains in office, things get worse. Evidence of the failure of privatisation and outsourcing is piling up day after day. What's long been a scam is now a crisis. Just look at the last few months. The Birmingham prison, run by G4S, had to be brought back into public ownership after the Chief Inspector of Prisons described it as the worst he'd ever visited. The privatised probation service on the brink of meltdown. Richard Bergen, the next Secretary of State for Justice, will end this scandal. On the railways, the East Coast franchise has collapsed for the third time in a decade, bailed out yet again by the taxpayers. Do you know what? You get on a train at King's Cross, and you never know who'll be running the train by the time you get to Edinburgh. Andy MacDonald, our Transport Secretary, will end this shambles and bring about a serious, sensible transport policy. And the giant privateer Carillion has gone bankrupt, sunk in a sea of reckless greed, leaving hospitals half-built, workers dumped on the dole, pensions in peril, while the Carillion directors continued to stuff their pockets with bonuses and dividends, and small businesses in the supply chain took heavy losses or went bust. And speaking of bankruptcy, the Tories are now extending it into their own backyard. A Conservative government and Conservative local councillors have combined to push Northamptonshire over the edge, putting vital services to those who need and rely on them at risk. 8 years of destructive austerity and obsessive outsourcing have left either councils teetering on the precipice too, and this government must be held to account for their social vandalism they're carrying out across the country. It is Labour councils and only Labour councils that are taking every step to protect people and services, and we must thank them for it. Thank those councillors for the work they do day in and day out. Privatisation and outsourcing are now a national disaster zone, and Labour is ready to call time on this racket.
Melania Trump's visit to Africa has been met with mixed feelings. The First Lady's tour of the continent has been overshadowed by the poor attention the U.S. President Donald Trump has given to Africa since arriving in the White House. Mr. Trump has been criticized for some of his comments on Africa and his policies on Africa. Meanwhile, the First Lady's trip has focused on maternal and newborn care in hospitals across Africa.
Mrs. Trump visited the Greater Accra Regional Hospital shortly after arriving in the Ghanaian capital on Tuesday, where she passed out blankets and teddy bears to newborn infants and their mothers. The White House says the First Lady will focus on maternal and newborn care in hospitals and education for children, which are key elements of her Be Best campaign that focuses on child welfare. Mrs. Trump's visit to Africa comes several months after a public firestorm over reports her husband used a vulgar term to describe the continent. John Campbell, a senior fellow for Africa Policy Studies at the Council on Foreign Relations, says her visit should convince Africans that not all Americans hold such views.
The few statements that the president has actually made about Africa have indeed been unfortunate. The trip by the First Lady, I think, will show that American policy and the administration are all multifaceted and are considerably more than 2 or 3 tweets.
But Judd Devermont, Africa Program Director at the Center for Strategic and International Studies, says a more important factor will overshadow Melania Trump's visit to Africa.
Given that this is an extraordinary times where there's senses that the president's not engaging on Africa and has disparaging views about the continent, I think it has an opportunity to have a positive effect. The bigger question, though, is that it is taking place when there are questions about what the broader strategy is, and I think that's going to be difficult for the First Lady.
The Trump administration called for significant cuts in humanitarian aid programs for Africa in its budget proposals, but those cuts were blocked by Congress. Melania Trump's African itinerary also includes Malawi, Kenya, and Egypt.
And the general evangelist and founder of Christ Apostolic Church, Agbala Itura, Prophet Samuel Abiara, has advised Nigerians in the diaspora to continue to pray for Nigeria, support good governance in the country. He disclosed this while speaking at the 33rd anniversary celebration of the church in Europe.
It was a very glorious event, and we thank God for it. That for 33 years, He has been very faithful with us. We passed through many storms, through many problems, through many tribulations, through many persecutions. But God proved His word in the life of this ministry, that the gate of hell will not prevail against church.
It's so wonderful, very, very wonderful. Very wonderful, I've said.
Lots of water that has gone under the bridge, but thank God the bridge has not collapsed. There have been so many challenges, physically, spiritually, and God, because Jeremiah 1:12 says God stands by His word even to perform, and He has done exactly that. So we give Him praise.
Those people that are here took the ministry to Ireland, and by the grace of God we have 6 other branches there, plus other two other groups that join us. So we are about 8 branches in Ireland, in Drogheda, in Cavan, in Dundalk, in Dublin, in Middleton, and God has been so good to us.
So what message are you taking back to the people of Ireland that you received from here?
Well, to be able to encourage them to spread them on to other parts of Ireland, and by the grace of God, when next we're celebrating something like this, some of them will join us here, and it's going to be awesome.
We want to thank God for the success of the 33rd anniversary of Agbala Itura in Europe. I was there live, right from the Genesis till date. God bless God.
You yourself, you see it for yourself. You see the happiness. You see the glorious of God. I mean, I don't know what I can say than to give thanks to God Almighty, who has been with us since 33 years. There are many, many challenges, but there's no life without challenges. That's why we are preaching the gospel, that once somebody accepts the gospel, he will overcome all challenges. You see the joy from the people. So we thank God Almighty for everything. I'm very, very happy. It's in my address that the people that live in this country and all over the globe, they must obey the law of the country, because the government of the country, they open the door for them, they give them what they need, so they must be careful. When they have, when they have comfort, they must not break the law of the country. They must abide law. So they must do everything according to the law. So that is what I can say for those who are living in the country. You know, we need prayer for our country, particularly the politicians. Politics is not do or die. So they must play politics with love and the rule of law. So, I mean, in this country, many countries, you know, I'm an international man. I travel a lot. And I saw how they conducted the election. And all the people that, they are in politics, they travel and they know what is happening. So I just want to advise the politicians to take it easy and to, to be faithful and to be trustworthy. That it's not good to kill the people that they want to govern. And if they kill them, who they want to govern. And that's number 2, and I want to advise the people. They should keep their mind at rest. They must not listen to the prophecy of doom. That, the election, the blood is going to, the land is going to sink. The sky is going to fall. Nothing will fall. So keep your mind at rest, and the time of election, go and vote for the party of your choice.
And with that report, we conclude the news roundup for this week. Thank you for being part of the program. I'm Tunde Alabi. Enjoy the rest of your week. Bye. Regardless, resident status abroad, living outside the shores of one's homeland can really be challenging and sometimes very difficult. Let's be sincere, to keep pace with updates from the host country abroad can really be difficult. Here on Dialogue in Diaspora, we give you every information, every news, every current issue you need to know on happenings outside the UK. Dialogue in Diaspora is your link between the world and the United Kingdom. It's your window to African development. Here, live on Bentvnewsround.